Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Love. I'm Robin Ducharme, your host, and today I had the most amazing discussion with Jillian Turecki. Jillian is a certified relationship coach, writer, and teacher who for 20 years has taught others how to transform their relationships with themselves. Today, we dive into what Jillian coaches, training ourselves to become more self-aware, to become more conscious, and to become more emotionally fit. Jillian shares ways to raise, reclaim, and rebuild our self-worth. Because ultimately, by improving the relationships we have with ourselves, we can transform our relationship with others. I hope this conversation inspires you to do just that. Enjoy. Welcome to Let's Talk Love. Today, I am so excited to welcome our guest, Jillian Turecki. Jillian, thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's our first time meeting over Zoom or at Riverside, but I feel like I know you because I have been following you for a while. Our team has. And I took your course. I took one of your courses and I'm planning on taking more. And I think, you're an excellent teacher and you have so much to share and it's very practical. So, I'm excited for our conversation.
Oh, good. Yay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm psyched too. Let's roll.
Yeah. So the first thing that I always ask our guests is a personal question. And it is, what in your life right now is giving you the most joy? And what is one of your greatest challenges you're facing right now in your life?
Okay. So, my greatest joy right now actually is my work. Mm-hmm. Things are I have been working so hard. I never thought that I would be an entrepreneur. Like that's the last thing that I thought my life would end up being. I just never thought I had it in me. And I had to work hard to kind of step into that. And I just love the way that I've set up my work. I have this new podcast coming out, Jillian on Love, and yes. I'm writing my book proposal for a book. And I work with the most beautiful, amazing people. So my biggest joy right now is my work, which I really never thought years ago that I would ever say. My biggest challenge right now is I'm sort of adjusting to this post-pandemic world. And what I mean by that is I think for so many people, it's changed the way that they want to live. And it's certainly changed the way that I want to live. I'm a New York City gal, born and raised in Manhattan, live here. I spent the last 2 winters in Florida because, I just wanted to get away. That was a dream that I've always had, to kind of live in different places. And so my biggest challenge right now is to figure out where I really want to buy a home and settle. So, that's my biggest challenge right now, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but it's definitely where I feel, unclear.
Yes. Something that, I think about my cousin when I think about what you just said. My cousin and I talk about this. It's like, I don't know who imparted this wisdom on me. I wish I could remember, but it's like when you don't know where to go next or what decision to make, don't do anything, right? I feel like our decisions sometimes, are made for us, through us. But it's like, if you don't know yet, it's like the answer will come to you, but you just have to spend some time, right?
I just posted something on Instagram literally last night saying the exact same thing.
Did you? Oh,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah. When you don't know what to do, you just have to wait for it to come to come to you in a quiet moment. And that's basically what I'm doing. It's just the one place where there's, it's a place where I'm in transition. So it's certainly nothing compared to the challenges that I've faced in the past. So I'm grateful for that.
It's not a bad challenge to have. Yeah.
No, it's all doable.
So Jillian, in order to get ready for this podcast, I was like, you know what? Because I've been following you, but I'm just like, I'm going to take some of your courses. So, so I took your self-worth course, which your website is Jillian. Yes, your workshop. I'm sorry. Well, yes, workshop course.
Course. And
at the end, you say, I really do feel like it was like a mini master's in self-worth. I mean, there's a lot of material. It doesn't take a long time to go through, but I think when it comes down to it, there's a lot to digest. And so that's what I thought we would dive into today, all about self-worth. And something you were reinforcing over and over in the workshop and in your work, period, because this is what your life's work is about right now, right? Well, it is. It's about helping empower people to love themselves and have a greater relationship with themselves so that we can have better relationships with others.
Yes.
Is that it? Would that be accurate?
Yeah. Yeah. And it includes self-love, but also like loving yourself enough to change where you need to change.
Yes.
Right. And yeah, absolutely. That's ultimately, that's what my message is, for sure.
Yep. And so something that I've got quotes throughout our talk today. And one of your quotes, I love what you say, but one of your quotes is, tending to our own self-worth is like cleaning your own house. And I love this analogy because it's like this, and you talk about how this, like, our self-worth is not just something that we're born with, of course, we're born pure love and we have inherent worth. We all do. But it's like, it's important to maintain and grow our self-worth. And like cleaning your house. Okay. You said you're doing your dishes. Of course, make your bed. If you've got a leaky tap, you got to fix it. If you've got, your doorknob's wobbly, you've got to get that fixed, because otherwise it's going to break down. And I think that this is a great way of saying it's like your self-worth, when you notice something is off or needs to be tended to, like the word tending, you've got to get on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. To be alive is to struggle with our value, on some level. Like, there's always going to be parts of ourselves that we are going to grapple with, but it's how can we actually love ourselves in spite of the fact that we don't like everything about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's just the truth. I mean, we all have a dark side, and some of us have darker sides than others, but I used to say, like, if I was judged on my thoughts alone, could you imagine?
That would be very bad. Very, very bad. I know.
Very bad. That would be really bad. But we're doing that to ourselves all the time. Mm-hmm, we're judging ourselves on the thoughts,
on our thoughts,
we're judging ourselves on the mistakes that we've made because we've messed up. There have been times where we've messed up. There have been times where we've been in a relationship and we've manipulated, or we've lied, or we've, maybe cheated or done all sorts of things. So we are very flawed, and we're judging ourselves on every single flaw instead of, in addition to, at least, appreciating everything that we've done and everything that we've overcome and everything that we do, and we just don't appreciate ourselves enough. And funny enough, the less we appreciate ourselves, the more likely we are to be in a relationship and stop appreciating the person we're in a relationship with. So when we judge,
again, you're saying that. So when you're saying,
the more we struggle to appreciate ourselves, the more judgmental we are of ourselves, the more we struggle to actually appreciate ourselves, that just gets transferred to other people, and it gets transferred the fastest to the person we're in a relationship with. Yeah. Because it's a habit to, be mean to ourselves, and we can easily just be that way to a partner. So there's always going to be situations where we are confronted with the parts of ourselves where we see that there's deficits in our self-worth, in our esteem for ourselves. And a romantic relationship is going to show that, like, very loud and clear, because when we love someone, we don't want them to leave us. We want them to love us back. Sometimes we want them to love us more than we even love them, because we're insecure that way. So when we're in a relationship with someone romantically, we're going to be confronted with the ways in which we don't feel enough. And that's going to happen to the best of us. But so self-worth is not something that, some people have more self-worth because of just how they were raised, honestly. They were just raised to be more confident, to believe in themselves more. Mm-hmm. And other of us, no fault of our parents necessarily. We just weren't. Or some of us, we feel really confident in certain areas of our lives and we feel really not confident in other areas of our lives. Sometimes we're not living up to our potential and we know it. Yes. And we know it. And it's very hard to have healthy self-esteem when we're not doing the things that we know we should be doing. So there's that tending to the different areas of our house, like inside of ourselves, is just taking stock of when we are doing things or not doing things or experiencing relationships in such a way that we realize, oh my God, I'm not loving myself, or my self-worth isn't really where it needs to be. And that could be just, the really obvious example of that is people who are dating or in relationships where they're being treated less than what they deserve, or they're not asking for what it is that they want because they don't believe that they are worthy of getting what it is that they want. So you want to know where your level of self-love is and self-worth is, get into a romantic relationship and you will know very quickly.
Yes. So can you define for us very simply, it's not simple, but yes, like what is self-worth? Mm-hmm. Because it's different than self-esteem.
Yeah,
right?
I know people like to put it in all these different categories, and psychologists do that all the time. I think that self-worth is measured by how much or how little you love yourself. And to be clear, to love yourself doesn't mean that you love everything about it doesn't mean that you like everything about yourself. It means you love yourself anyway, despite the fact that you are flawed, despite the fact that you have mean thoughts, despite the fact you love yourself anyway, which means that you appreciate yourself. It means that you want the best for yourself. It means that you want to see yourself win, not lose in life. It means that when you're in pain, you listen to yourself, you pay attention, you take care of your body, you take care of your emotions, you show yourself respect, you practice boundaries in the best way that you can, and you recondition yourself to understand what boundaries are so that you can care for yourself in the way that you would care for anyone outside of yourself who you love.
Yes. And so you tell a personal story about yourself and I really resonated with this, Jillian, because I would consider myself, I consider that I have pretty high self-worth. Like I love myself, but I definitely beat myself up. So maybe that's just like, that's maybe not so high. That's not such high self-worth. I would say that I've got high standards for myself and others. Mm-hmm. But you talk about how there was a turning point in your life because you said that, you had quite a balanced, healthy understanding about yourself and you thought you had good, high self-worth, but then you went through a traumatic experiences in your life and you realized, actually, this is actually a place in my life where I'm not as strong as I thought I was.
Yes. So, in my late 20s, I was in an abusive relationship. So I think that was like the first time that I have had like lovely relationships. And then I was like, definitely like when I was a teenager in a relationship with like a bad boy. And it's like, if I had great self-esteem and self-worth, like I wouldn't have been in that relationship. But I think, you kind of look back and you're like, we all have to have one of those in our lives, Yeah. But in my late 20s, I was in a relationship where I was, treated horribly. And the thing about abusive relationships is that very rarely is it a scenario where you're just like in the corner, like a helpless puppy while someone is verbally or physically beating on you. I mean, those things happen, but more commonly, it's this dynamic where you're treated really poorly, but instead of walking away and ending the relationship, the worst in you comes out. So you fight with them and you get nasty with them too, because you want to defend yourself. So that was a very complicated relationship, but yeah, I was treated horribly. And finally it ended. And yeah, so I had this perception of myself that I was this strong, confident, young New York City born and bred woman. And that, I think, is how people saw me. That's what I projected out into the world. And I think it represented a part of me. But there's no way that you loving yourself and tolerating abuse, they don't live in the same room. Like they cannot coexist.
Yes.
They just don't. And loving yourself and just tolerating someone, who might be actually a lovely person, but they're just not that into you. And then you're chasing them to try to get them to be into you. Like self-love and that does not coexist. So I always tell people, we all are hungry to be loved, and that's part of life. But if your hunger for love is stronger than your self-love, you will do things like betray yourself, like lose your dignity, like chase others just to get someone else's love. And that's when you actually get into a lot of trouble, because if your hunger for love is so strong, if it's stronger than your love for yourself, you will end up with people who don't care that much about you, or who treat you poorly, who are just aloof, or who use you. So that was a really big turning point. Because when that ended, I was like, wow, I gotta look in the mirror and be like, how the hell did I accept that? It was really a very humbling experience. And I never, ever, ever got close to anything like that ever again. Thankfully, that was not a pattern. That didn't become a pattern. But it's a very humbling experience. And I just want to encourage everyone, whether it's abuse or something totally different, accept the challenge. Accept the challenge of trying to figure yourself out and love yourself and figure out your pattern, figure out where that comes from. Don't just sit in the pain and the story of you not being treated well. Figure out why you're in this situation. Get out of the situation, then figure out why you were in it to begin with.
So you don't repeat it, because it can become a pattern. So if you don't identify the reason.
You gotta, because if you're, if you're in something that clearly is not right, whether it's on the one end of the spectrum, abuse, which is very extreme. Most cases are just like, you're just not, maybe you're chasing the wrong person, or you're just in something that's not very, reciprocal or whatever, whatever it is. If you're in these types of situations, something is wrong. Something is wrong, and you need to address it. And it's coming from something within, from some place within. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about shame and guilt. So you say shame and guilt are common feelings that initiate low self-worth to manifest. And of course, because those are low frequency feelings, emotions, and states to be in. So it makes sense. To stay in.
Right. But you
have feelings of shame and guilt in some.
And it's appropriate to be. And we should feel shame sometimes. And we should feel guilty sometimes. Absolutely. If we don't, we're sociopathic.
Yes. It's to stay in.
Mm-hmm.
So, this was something that I was interested in, is that women are 10 times more likely to feel guilt than men.
Yes.
And what is the reason for this? I was like, wow, I didn't actually think about it. But I'm like, actually, I know women, and I'm like, yeah, we feel way more guilty.
Yeah, women feel guilty all the time because we feel responsible for everyone. We feel we're nurturers, even if we're all not like the biggest nurturer, we're nurturers, but we feel responsible for everyone. I think part of that is biological, like hormonal. I think part of that is conditioning, but we feel like we're responsible for everyone's happiness. We feel like we have to do a lot to make people love us. And, it's like the mother archetype in all of us. It's like, we're not doing enough for the child, even if we don't have a child. We're not doing enough for our plant. We're not doing enough for our parents. We're not doing enough for our pet. It's just a way in which women are very, very hard on themselves. And it sucks. It's super unproductive.
Yeah. And so the difference between guilt and shame is like, guilt is like, I did something wrong. I recognize that I feel like crap about it. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Whereas shame is, I am wrong. Like,
I am wrong.
Something in me is, I'm wrong. I'm unlovable.
Yes.
Oh, that's where that is the very core of that feeling.
That's the very core of that. And I think that the healthy shame is, it's like you do something, and let's say you do something that you really are ashamed of. It means I think that we experience, guilt when it's really strong becomes shame. And we experience shame whenever we do something that goes against our values at a very deep level. You're like, I don't know who that was. That goes against everything that I believe in. It's like someone who really believes in commitment and loyalty, like their highest value is loyalty, and they find themselves having an affair. And so they're like in this, oh my God, I cannot believe I did that. That's not me. And so you feel this intense shame because you go against your values. And it's important because that's when you really are questioning yourself and questioning your identity. But you have to be able to forgive yourself. Because if you stay in shame too long, which is like, I am bad, I am the problem. Well, number one, unintentionally you become narcissistic, because everything then is like all you're focusing on is you become self-obsessed. Everything is about you, right? So if we're constantly feeling ashamed, who are we constantly thinking about? Ourselves.
I've never thought of that. How, like, if you're right? Wow.
Yeah. You're obsessing over yourself. And so the fastest way to increase your self-worth, to get out of shame, all of that, is to give to someone or others outside of yourself. It's to contribute in some way. It's to help someone who's in a worse off position than you. It's to do, I don't care if it's walking dogs in a shelter or helping people. It's to get out of your head so you're not constantly obsessing about yourself, which we're all guilty of. We can get into those trances. Yes.
That is one of, I know in the workshop I took, there's 11 ways for us to to grow our self-worth. Mm-hmm. And that is the one of the most important ones, right? I really believe that. It's like, you have to step outside yourself in order to receive, grow. And I mean, giving from just your heart.
Yeah.
Because generosity begets, the more you give, the more you receive. And that is just a truism of life.
Exactly. And giving from a place of, I'm not trying to get something back.
Oh, no, of course. No.
Right.
No,
yeah. Right.
It has to be authentic giving.
It has to be authentic. Yeah. It has to be like you're doing something outside. Yeah. Unconditional, and something outside of you're like contributing to something outside of yourself. I mean, I'll never forget when I was going through a divorce, and it was just a really, really, really hard time in my life. And I was teaching yoga at the time. And it was, even though I would have so many moments where it's like, oh my God, I cannot drag myself to this class and give. Like, I am just too in it. But I always felt better afterwards because I couldn't think about me. I couldn't think about my situation. I couldn't think about my pain. I had to completely focus on others for that hour and a half. And that was the freedom. That was 90 minutes of freedom that I would have in the other 22 and a half hours of day where I was in pain.
Yes. Wow. Jillian, you know what I think about when I think, I just love how you, like, this is what, like, so many things I learned from you, but I love it how you explain, like, there's so many paradoxes in life, and that is a paradox. Because you think, okay, I can't do this. People, like, I liken this to like 1 hour of exercise. You cannot do it. You can't go. It's just like everything in you is saying, I'm just too tired. I've got this to do, make all these excuses. But you do that. You're giving yourself that love, and you step out of your brain and your head, you get into your body, and then you're able to feel like 100, like really, really well, really good afterwards.
And more productive.
That's the right analogy. More productive.
No, but it is more productive. Exactly. Well, it is. It's like you think you're going to be losing that hour, but actually you become more productive in the hours that follow. So you make more use of your time. That is a paradox.
So, being in a rut, this was good. Because I think that this is another way that we can, like, self-sabotage ourselves, right? And our self-worth. If we're in a rut, we're not honoring where we need to go next, right? So you talk about one of the effects of self-worth is being a rut. Okay, how can you explain what being in a rut really is and how this shows up in someone's life?
Okay, so being stuck in a rut is basically feeling stuck in life. And it's extremely painful because even when life is hard, we are designed as human beings to feel much better as long as there's momentum, as long as we're progressing, as long as we're moving, right? So to be stuck in a rut is extremely painful. When we get stuck in a rut, usually there's an internal conflict that's happening. And the internal conflict is preventing us from changing and expanding. Now, I have found that our lives the quality of our lives is much better the less resistant we are to change. Now, I'm someone who never was like great with change. I'm someone who was never that great with change. And as a result, I used to suffer more than the average person because I just didn't really like change. And it only is when you start to embrace change, because nothing stays the same, that you
the only
actually
thing consistent in life is change, right?
It's the only thing consistent in life is change. So you will find yourself stuck less often and not for as long when you embrace your own evolution and change.
Yeah.
Part of what prevents us, other than a fear of expansion and change, is there's an inner conflict that has some sort of chokehold on us. The inner conflict usually has something to do with, this is what I want to be doing versus this is what I think I should be doing. And the should is often rooted in, our conditioning, what mom and dad wants for us, how we think of ourselves is like, if someone is a lawyer and they've always practiced law, that becomes part of their identity. But what if they actually don't want to practice law anymore? They don't, so let me just make this a little bit clearer. I don't know where the practicing law analogy came from, but this is what I'm rolling with. Let's say you have someone who's a lawyer and's been a lawyer for many years. And she no longer wants to be a lawyer. Mm-hmm. But her identity is so wrapped up in being a lawyer. It's what she's good at. It's what she knows. It's what she's been doing for so long. It's how people know her. It's how she was conditioned by her parents to do. It's like she's wrapped up in the achievement of that. She's wrapped up in the identity of that. But she knows that's not what she wants. But she can't make the leap out of the rut to change, because to do that means she has to divorce an identity that she is very attached to.
Yes.
So that's the internal conflict that's keeping her stuck.
Yes.
She's stuck
so
because she does. Yeah. Sorry, you were going to say?
Oh, so you have the other thing you say is like, which I think a lot of people find themselves in. It's like, even though you're really uncomfortable internally, you're comfortable in the rut too. That's
the other thing. Yeah. Well, that's the change. It's like, I don't want to be where I'm at, but the unknown is scarier. So I'm going to stay, but this is totally unconscious. I'm going to stay miserable, addicted to the certainty that and the comfort that this situation is giving me. But deep down in my soul, in my bones, in my gut, whatever you believe in, you know that this is not what you want. But there might be too many in your mind, or in for real, like too many consequences. Like maybe the consequences of moving on means a pay cut. Maybe the consequences moving on is an identity, is redefining yourself. And this is what a midlife crisis really is. That's what a midlife crisis is. I was just discussing this with friends yesterday. This is what a midlife crisis is. It's like, I don't know who I am. I want to redefine myself, but that's too scary. Like, like what we all go through a midlife crisis, just not everyone's reacting to the midlife crisis by, buying like the sports car, like, buying the sports car, or having like the young wife or young man, like, how it's portrayed in movies. But we all go through this sort of identity crisis of, is this who I still want to be? But if we think that there's too many consequences of taking that leap, right? Maybe the consequence is we have to outgrow a relationship. Maybe the consequence is, you have to take jobs. Yeah, all of it. So sometimes the consequences feel so daunting that we don't take the leap, and yet we're still unhappy where we are. That's the rut.
Yes.
And sometimes the rut is shallow, and sometimes it's a full-on ditch. But it's all because of an internal conflict. Yes.
Yeah. So two things came to mind when you brought up this idea about a lawyer. So first of all, I love doing Peloton workouts. I can sell those things for a living. I love Peloton. Anyways, one of my favorite instructors is Robin Arzon. And she is like this top athlete. And so she was a lawyer, and now she is like the chief of athletic. She's a chief athletic director of Peloton, like the whole company. She's a total rock star. And she talks about this, on how she was totally in that place in her life where she's like, I'm going to have to literally leave my career as a lawyer in order to pursue my dream. And how scary is that? It's freaking like terrifying.
Terrifying.
But like you say, and like we all know, the people in life that we admire, and this was a practice that you encourage people to do in your workshop, is to reflect on the people that you admire and that have done great things in life. And guess what? Everybody failed. Everybody had to take a chance. We have to step out of our comfort zone, get out of that rut in order to build the life that we really want. I fully believe that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, just one other thing I wanted to say about this, because Mark Groves made a post on this yesterday. It's funny how there's so many.
I saw that post
in life. I love that.
I saw that
because
I saw that.
He said, because he talks about how he was a businessman and everything before he came into being a writer and everything he's doing in his life. And he was like, and I had to change my whole perspective on the job I was in. He's like, I know I need to leave this career. However, he was thinking of it as like, oh, I've got to get up. I've got to go to my job again that I don't like. And he's like, once I changed my perspective that it was financing my dream, he's like, I'm not going to quit my job in order to pursue my dream. I'm going to stay in my job so that I can pursue my dream. Like it's financing my dream. And so it became a vehicle rather than a detriment.
Absolutely. And it's smart because you shouldn't quit your day job right away.
No,
you should not. Bad idea. So that mindset shift is huge.
Yeah. So I really like that. So let's get into how people have levels of low standards, right? We need to define what our standards are. And this is where you just talked about that, on like getting to know yourself, on this understanding your values. And can we talk about how low standards show up in people's lives? Like, what does that translate to?
Yeah. So I'll I'll speak to it just like in the context of within dating, because I think that this is a big one. Okay. So low standards will look like being allowing someone to just not treat you with a lot of respect. So that's like obvious, right? So just allowing someone to treat you with disrespect. Not so obvious is just being with someone who isn't at all right for you. Like you don't share the same values. You don't, you're not really compatible, but you are really attracted to the person. That in a big way that people don't understand is actually lowering your standards, because you're basically ignoring that which is so important to you that you need in a relationship. You're lowering your standards just so that you can be with someone who gives you some attention and you're attracted to. So that's lowering your standards. Lowering your standards is just accepting like crumbs of attention and whatnot. Lowering your standards is also being with someone who, like if you really have we all have problems. There's no perfect life. But if you generally have your life in order, like you have things in order, and then you're going to date someone whose life is a mess, like they don't have their life in order at all, that is also lowering your standards. It's like, why we all go through stuff, but why would you be with someone whose life is complete chaos when you hold yourself to a very particular standard? Why would you then lower your standard for a partner? So that would be also another way that it shows up. Yeah. So, but it's basically tolerating less than you need and that you deserve.
Yes, than you need. That's actually, and that's another thing I was thinking about is that we use the word, deserve is a good word. But I think more than that, when you identify your true values, it's like, that's different than a belief. Because, our beliefs change and our values can change too. I'm not saying
yes, they can. Yeah.
But I think our values, when it comes down to it, it's like I would identify most of my values as like a need right now in my life. Right? Our values might change, but it's like my values 10 years ago are different than they are now. Some are the same, but it's like those are now like a need.
Yes. Yes. And you need to know what it is that you need, like non-negotiably, Yes. So you lower your standard every time you say, okay, I'm going to be in a relationship with someone who can't meet your needs. That's lowering your standards too. And it's not about having such a high standard that you go for perfection in another human being. That's, because no one's perfect, but the person you end up with is rarely ever who you actually think you're going to end up with.
Yes.
But, like you want to be in a certain type of relationship. You want there to be communication. You're doing the work to show up. Someone else is just not doing the work, or just certainly just isn't even investing in you in any way, but yet you keep accepting it. That's lowering your standards. And it looks like in money too. Sorry, in money too.
Oh, yes.
Accepting salaries that are completely below what it is that you have earned in the past and what you're worth, what your value is. So a lot of people lower their standards around love and money.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Okay. No, you didn't. I interrupted you. Okay. So you have in your workshop, which I think it's important for everybody to take this workshop. It's worth it. But we do definitely not have time to go through all the steps, but I think if we can go through a few of them about how you can raise your self-worth. So number one, you already talked about the importance of how, like, in one of our human needs is momentum. And I totally, I feel that in myself. If I'm not moving forward in life in ways that I feel like I'm not just doing all the time.
It's not just achieving. It's not.
No. It's not about achieving. It's actually
growing.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's growing. I need to grow. That's what it is. If I don't feel like I'm growing, that's, I think, more clear way to say it. Then I'm like, all right, I need to do something about this. My momentum is in install mode right now. And it's okay to have moments of pause, a lot of moments of pause. That's
to go through seasons. So sometimes,
yes.
but it's like, that it should be a conscious choice. Like I'm taking, for example, like you could say I'm taking the summer and this is the summer of no momentum. This is summer of chill, right? But it's intentional.
Yes. Okay, so one of the first things you talk about is the importance of action, taking action, proactivity in your life, right? So can you just talk a little bit more about that? About how action is like your nature's greatest drug. I thought, well, what is that? I've never heard of that before.
What did I say? I don't even remember what I said.
Action is nature's greatest drug.
Oh my God, the things that came that came out and back then, I don't even remember.
You talk about dopamine, right? And how it's so there's biological, of course there's a lot of biology behind this.
Yeah, so look, we can't take action just for the sake of taking action. But sometimes we can. It's like, it depends on the situation. If you're in a rut, taking some sort of action is actually going to get you out of the rut. It is the thing that's going to cure the rutitism, like you're being in the rut. It's very important. I think it's very important to take action, even if it's small action, just to know that you're actually doing something, whatever that is, to create the hour that you want, the minute that you want, the day that you want, the life that you want. And I really believe that, because what is depression? No one's taking action when they're depressed. And the lack of action, it's like a snowball, creates even more depression. And then the more depressed you are, the less you take action. That's why sometimes anger is temporarily a good antidote to depression, because then in that state, we're like, we want to make some decisions and take action. So I think that is actually really what I meant. It's important to be proactive. Like you don't like something in your life, like you're not happy with how your love life is. Be proactive, figure it out. Like what is actually going on? Why don't you like it? What's happening? So we can't just sit back and just passively wait for life to become what we want it to become. We have to be a participant in our lives and make things happen.
Yes.
It's just the only way. And I understand. I know what it's like to not want to do that. And look, this is why people hire coaches too, because they're like, I want to take action, but I don't know how to take the action. But just being proactive, hiring that therapist, hiring that coach, making that phone call, sending that email, whatever it is, it's what makes us feel good about ourselves.
Yeah. And it's something that it's like just in the last, I would say just the last while, it's like there's so much more momentum and talk now about the importance of our emotional health, right? Because our society has just been so, for the longest time, stuck on physical health, how we look, how, going to the gym. All right, get your Botox, on the outside, we're looking pretty good. Everybody's like really spending a lot of money. There's
thousands of dollars. Yes.
So, but where is the money spent on the investment spent on our emotional fitness? That really is so important. And it needs to be a regular daily, focus in all of our lives is our emotional well-being. Because it's like we're spending way too much focus on our physical.
Absolutely.
So emotional,
Absolutely. People will drop $1,200 on a pair of boots, but then if it's like to coaching, they're like, oh, that's too expensive. They'll be like, that's too expensive. It's like, really? How do you figure that?
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer. I've always invested so much in my growth and my emotional health. So it's so very, very important.
Yeah.
But forget about the money spent. It's just about moving your body every day or doing the things that you need to do to stay grounded.
Yes. Right. So one of the things you also talk about is doing, in order to help with our self-worth, is doing what makes you feel alive. Right. So the more you feed your spirit, the more your self-worth will increase.
Absolutely.
It seems like a no-brainer, but I think it's
so
like,
hard.
I kind of laughed at something you said. It's like, okay, if you only feel alive on a holiday, you have a big problem, right? Because it's like, that's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's a temporary fix. Like that 2 weeks or 1 week off, or even the weekend off on your little fun holiday. If that's the only time you feel alive and you come back to your life and you're like, oh, this is really not okay. I'm not okay with this. Well, then you need to be doing way more in your regular life to feel alive.
When we feel alive, we feel closest to ourselves. We are more, we are actually being ourselves. When we feel alive, we're not stressed. We're not worried. We're not projecting into the future. We're not living in the past. When we feel alive, we're not struggling with our self-worth. We feel really connected. Yeah, we just don't. We're not. We feel connected. To feel alive in the way that I see it is to feel totally, not to feel separate, but to feel connected to everything and everyone. And that's when we're not all wrapped up in our self-concern in those moments. And it's hard, it's the real rut is knowing what actually makes us feel good, but not feeling motivated to do that. And yes, that could be part of depression, but it could also be all the other stuff that we talked about so far of inner conflict and whatnot. It's like giving yourself permission to have fun.
Yes.
Right? To do things that really, really light you up. We get comfortable. We get lazy. We get complacent. Yeah. And yet if we are actually doing things that makes us feel more alive, like we do, number one, another paradox, it's an act of self-love to do that for yourself. But then you actually get so much in return. And your return on the investment of actually doing the things that light you up and make you happy is so astronomical.
Yes.
And so sometimes I just work with people helping them to figure out what is it that makes them actually feel alive. Because it doesn't have to be some huge thing. It could just be little things.
Yes.
That makes you feel just like you feel the blood. Sometimes it's just exercise. Like you want to feel your heart pumping. You want to feel it. You want to feel your skin tingle. Yeah.
Yes. Something I realized about myself this year that it was like, I knew it was important to me, but now I know it's like a true value and that makes me feel alive. First of all, I value joy and laughter and fun. And it's not a want, it's a need. Because like life, we all have so much in life. There's just going to be ups and downs, and the downs can be really hard, right? Yeah. And for me, like if I don't have that balance with the hard, I'm completely off kilter. Whereas some people can be like, I'm steady Eddie. I'm like, oh no. I need the lightness to counteract the dark. And I know that about myself, right?
Yes. So what do you do to get that?
Well, I spend time with like my friends and my close family that I'm just like, we have so much fun and we laugh. I would just watch a comedy with my husband, like just getting outside and exercising. Those are things that give me joy. And of course, spending time with my kids and that, just laughing. I just like, if I can find levity in things,
laughing. I
need it, right? It's good medicine.
Oh, a good laugh is medicine. I think that's like a proven thing. It's medicine.
Yes. Yeah. So anyways, I just realized that I need it in my life. So I'm like, now what is your top value? One of them is definitely joy and laughter and fun, all in one. So anyway, you need to know that about yourself, right?
Yeah, you need to know that about yourself. Look, we all crave release. So it's like, Release comes in the form of an amazing laugh, an amazing cry, an amazing poop, an amazing orgasm. Like, it's all of it. We like release because especially in this culture, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and we have a lot of pressure. Yeah. So anything that just helps you let go, we love.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, yeah. We only have a little bit left time left, but I wanted to talk about courage. And you said something that I wanted to create I'm going to do this. I'm going to ask Maya, who works with us, to create this like Instagram picture of like a muscle, your arm, like getting really strong, because courage is a muscle. And you said it, and I'm like, I know I've said this a million times, but I just haven't done a little picture on it yet. But it's like, courage is a muscle, and you have to use it just like every other muscle. Otherwise it just kind of just goes flat, right?
Atrophies.
You can build it up. You build it up. Atrophy, right? Yeah. So the paradox of self-worth is that low self-worth will keep you in fear. But facing fear is what raises it. Yes. So this is what you're coaching people with all day long, right? Is
in some capacity,
building
coaching
your courage.
Yeah. I mean, I coach people on relationships. Like, that's really what it is. But even though I don't even have to use the word courage, but yeah, basically what I'm doing is in a nutshell, like you said, coaching people on courage.
Yeah. Please can you talk about that before we go?
Yeah. We have a lot of fears, and we have a lot of fears in relationship. And it takes a lot of courage to ask for what you need. It takes a lot of courage to address the elephant in the room if you're in a relationship or marriage. It takes a lot of courage to walk away from the wrong person. It takes a lot of courage to put your needs aside sometimes and focus just on your partner and what they need. You know, all of that takes a lot of courage. It's very scary to be vulnerable. It's very scary to face not being loved back or not being enough. And some people are facing fears that we can't even imagine, like phobias and stuff like that. So every time we do something, you know, if we have no fear, there's no courage. But every time we do something in spite of the fact that we are afraid, it is huge for our sense of self-worth. It's like, we feel so powerful in those moments. Mm-hmm. We feel so proud of ourselves in those moments. And the reality is that if you want to be in a relationship, like, you have to be brave. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be dating, you have to be brave, because you have to be authentic. And you might be really attracted to someone, and everything in your system is saying, you know, impress this person, get this person to like you, but you have to be like, sorry, you said you don't want kids. I want kids. Nice meeting you. You know, whatever it is. Like, some people they're so scared to be who they are on a date because they're afraid of rejection. So it takes a lot of courage to face possible rejection.
Yep.
And consistently facing our fears it's huge for self-worth, because none of us feel good when we allow fear to stop our lives, when we allow fear to rob us of our authenticity, or rob us of the standards that we want to uphold for ourselves and for others, or rob us from doing the things that are in alignment with our values. Like, we know when fear has overcome us, and it feels terrible, but it feels really good when you can just do that one small thing, even if it's just one small thing that you were terrified of. It's huge.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Wow. Well, I so loved our conversation, Jillian. It went by so fast.
So fast, too fast.
So tell me where we can continue to learn and grow with you. I know your website is jillianturecki.com.
Yeah, Jillian Turecki.
Yeah, tell us about what.
Yeah. So it's JillianTurecki.com, and then on Instagram at Jillian Turecki. I have a TikTok account too. But on September 7th, my new podcast, Jillian on Love,
That's my birthday.
is coming out. No way!
Yes, we'll promote it for you.
Birthday. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, so this is just, this is sort of unexpected. A company came to me and said, we want to produce it. And I was like, okay. And there's going to be it's a lot of solo episodes where I'm going to go 45 minutes to an hour deep on the things that I cover on an Instagram, as well as I have some really special guests. So I've recorded about 10 already. That launches September 7th. And so that's really the big news right now, and more stuff coming down the pipeline.
Wonderful. Well, we will continue to follow you and learn from you, and definitely listen to your podcast, Jillian on Love. And so much love to you. You're doing amazing work in the world. That's for sure.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jillian. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.